Alright, so I've kind of already touched on this on the channel a little bit in a previous AFL trade video, but I didn't truly go into all my thoughts and opinions on the recent rumored Liam Ryan trade idea that's come out. A lot of rumors about him. Again, I've previously talked about Carlton being interested in him before as well, but the one I recently talked on was the report that is saying that St Kilda have been linked to small forward Liam Ryan. It is believed that Ryan will seek a trade come season's end, and that's all, of course, being reported by Tom Morris. Now, again, as we know, St Kilda are going into the trade period and free agency with the idea of pretty much being interested in everyone and their dad. Again, at the time of making this video, they are pretty much already a lock to be getting 2 new players to their team next year. Again, Tom De Koning is the first one. I have talked about it on the channel more times than I can even remember at this point. Like, literally, if I had $1 for every time I've talked about this, I'd probably be richer than freaking Bruce Wayne or, I don't know, Elon Musk. But again, we know Tom De Koning, the ruckman from Carlton, is officially joining St Kilda pretty much as soon as he officially can. Again, we also have heard that Leah is pretty much locked up to go to St Kilda as well. Again, it's being reported that the money they are offering him is just something that GWS can go literally nowhere near of, trying to match. Again, those are the 2 guys that they have officially basically signed before free agency and the trade period has obviously started. Again, I don't usually get to say that a team has pretty much officially signed 2 blokes like months before free agency, but here we are, and that's how St Kilda are going about this offseason. Again, there are other players they've been interested in, but I think Liam Ryan being the most recent one is definitely really, really interesting, and I actually think would be a great fit for St Kilda. Again, before I do get into the St Kilda fit, I would also like to touch on West Coast really quick, because I've kind of said it on the channel before as well, but I think West Coast have to, in my opinion, they should be targeting this trade period and free agency harder than anyone, because I really think there are a lot of problems right now at West Coast, but the reality, in my opinion, is that they could fix it really easy. And I think this is going to be the trade period of trading for elite young players who can't get a game in very, very good teams. Again, I'm talking about your Alex Davies, who hasn't had an opportunity to crack into the Gold Coast midfield. I'm talking about your Sam Butler, your Henry Hustwaite from Hawthorn, who are like 20 and 21 years old, who haven't been able to break into that Hawks team. Again, West Coast could easily trade for a ton of those guys if they really wanted to, but the other thing I think they really need to do is kind of filter through a lot of their older players, just like Richmond did previously, and make sure you do that well without losing your, really, really experienced guys. Again, unfortunately, they had to lose Jeremy McGovern. Dom Sheed they lost as well, but not really too bad. I think the type of players you're going to want to keep are those really good leaders who can add value, by leading from the front, like a Jamie Cripps. That's like the type of guy I think they need to keep. But in terms of a Liam Ryan, who's not necessarily known as a leader and probably isn't helping the young boys out a whole lot, I think there's room and opportunity to move him, especially if you can get something really good. Again, I know West Coast fans will probably go in the comment section down below and rage at me for saying that. Again, I don't blame them. And one of the reasons West Coast fans are so defensive about this is because, well, Liam Ryan's one of their only players kicking goals right now, and he's one of their only good players at the moment. So West Coast fans really don't want to lose him. But again, the reality is that you need to get in picks, I think, to go and trade for those Alec Davies, Sam Butler, the Henry Hustwaite types. And the only way you're going to get in these assets is if you maybe move on a player or two that does still have some trade value. And there's really not many of them at West Coast at all. In fact, Liam Ryan might be the only one. And I think if you could get a good trade for him by another team, you should 100% want to do that. Because imagine you get like a late first round pick for Liam Ryan, you turn that into Alex Davies and Henry Hustwaite. Well, those two players are going to be way more beneficial for your team going forward than what Liam Ryan is. Again, in terms of St Kilda, yes, this makes sense. St Kilda are in a position now where they've been drafting enough and have been bringing in enough good young players that, and saving up on cap space, it is time to finally now go and use that cap space on positional needs. Again, they're getting their ruckman, they're getting their second/third tall in Lake Aaliyah. Now it's time to go and add to that forward line. I think Liam Ryan would be a really good player to bring in. Again, St Kilda are going to be entering the window right now of a team who is going to not only want to make a finals run, but is going to want to, I think, contend in a year or so. And Liam Ryan is 28 years old, turning 29. So the reality is that Liam Ryan probably only has a couple good years left in him, especially considering he is a small forward, and small forwards tend to drop off a lot quicker than other players just because of the lack of speed and whatnot that they unfortunately lose as they get older. Again, Liam Ryan is still having putting together a really good season with the Eagles. The issue with all of this, like I've mentioned, he'd be a great idea to get in for St Kilda. I've mentioned it'd be a good idea for West Coast to move him. The whole issue is that these two clubs and the supporters of the clubs are going to be really, really, I think, triggered by any trade idea that's going to get put forward. Again, St Kilda are going to be thinking here, look, this has got 29-year-old small forward who's probably got 2 years max in, good form. We want to give up a late second round pick at best. We don't want to give up anything for a guy who's only got 2 years left. But then West Coast will be sitting there thinking, hold on, this guy's been, a very good player for our club for a very long time. It's also a much weaker draft. We want you to cough up a end of first round pick. And that's where I think dialogue and discussions are going to hit a wall and are going to become a significant problem. And unfortunately for West Coast, in my opinion, is I think if dialogue hits a wall and does become a significant problem, it hurts them much more than it hurts St Kilda, because even though St Kilda won't be bringing in the quality player if it, does turn to shit, St Kilda will be sitting there thinking, well, he's only probably got a couple good years left in him anyway. But West Coast will be sitting there thinking, shit, we could have got a decent pick in and we could have turned that into Alex Davies and maybe Henry Hustwaite. And you could have turned a guy who's turning 30 next year into two 20 to 21-year-old inside midfielders who I personally think are going to become elite players that just have not had the opportunity so far at their clubs and don't really fit in terms of the other players that are at their clubs right now. So it would be a pain in the ass for West Coast, and I don't think West Coast are getting that much back in if they do keep Liam Ryan. Again, the good thing, I suppose, is that you'd be like, look, we at least are keeping our, one of our leading goal kickers, and that's going to help us going forward. But then, like, Richmond last year would have been like, shit, we're losing our best and fairest in Daniel Rioli. We're losing our future captain in Liam Baker, who I think finished 4th. We're losing a pretty good player in Jack Graham, and we're losing arguably our best player in Shea Bolton. Where are we going to go forward here? Because we're losing all that. We've only won 2 games. If we're losing all that, we're not going to win a game this year. But because they lost all that, it gave the ability for younger players and players who were actually checked into the footy club to come in and play a role. And Richmond were actually able to turn it into a 5-game win so far this season. So West Coast, theoretically, it's like, yeah, we're losing one of our leading goal kickers. But honestly, you're going to turn that leading goal kicker into maybe an Alex Davies and Henry Hustwaite, who not only will be better for the long term, but they could low-key be better straight away. So I think it'd be a idiotic decision for West Coast to really argue too much about Liam Ryan's worth. And we just got to remember this dude's a near 30-year-old bloke who's a small forward. Can't be asking for a top 15 pick or anything like that. I just don't think that's going to happen. And I hope conversations go smoothly here, because I really don't know what the outcome of this is going to be. But I am very interested to see how it goes. Again, I'd very much like to know all of your thoughts and opinions on this in the comment section down below. Should St Kilda trade for Liam Ryan? What should they give up? Should West Coast move on from him or not? Again, I'd very much like to know your thoughts and opinions down below. Subscribe to my gaming/movie channel, which will be linked down below as well. My Instagram, which will also be getting linked down below. And I guess I'll be seeing you guys next time. Goodbye.